All right, good evening, guys. Welcome to All Outdoors with Muck Simons. Another episode. Tonight's going to be a fantastic show. It's going to be super light. We're going to have lots of fun. We've got a bunch of characters. I'll just say that on the program tonight. We have Mike from Pursue the Hunt here with us. And of course, if you've been following Mike and myself, you know that Mike came down to Saskatchewan this fall or last fall, and we had a couple of epic hunts that Mike did some filming with his dad, Jim. Anyways, we thought we'd get the crew together and just talk about wrap up of how good the hunts were this fall and what's coming up for next year. So I'm not going to introduce everybody. Just because it would take 10 minutes to get through this group. But we're just going to be talking about stories and stuff like that. So welcome everybody, and thanks for taking an evening to just chat about what happened this fall.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Yeah,
Sounds good, Mark.
So give some history for those that haven't maybe saw the show that aired a couple weeks ago on Pursue the Hunt on the Sportsman's channel. But Mike and his dad, Jim, came down and we started off, they showed up in Regina, and Mike, Jim, myself, and Dawson, the camera guy there, we all got together and we just did a 1-day upland hunt. Jim and Mike can't shoot pheasants for just, it's only residents only. So really we're looking for huns and sharptail or chicken. And right from the time we got down to the southeast, we were into birds literally as soon as we got there. It was just epic. I know one of the things that stood out was we stopped at one of my friends that's a landowner there southeast of Weyburn, and he gave us permission on a lot of land that was posted. And Jim, your dad, Mike, like the first bluff we went to got his limit of chicken, and Dawson did an awesome job of getting that on video. It was and he was shooting a 20 gauge too. Not that you can't shoot be good with a 20 gauge, but we were all shooting 12 gauges, and Jim had a 20 gauge and he knocked those two down.
Yeah, it's actually a funny story about that. So before we came down, we were doing some like clay pigeon practice and stuff because like we don't do a lot of shotgun work over here in BC, and so we're kind of just tuning up. And then so my dad has a pump Browning that he has here at home, and with no sissy pad on it at all or whatever. And it was so funny because I might have to post some behind the scenes footage actually, because he just put like number 6 in there and he was just like, oh man. It was just like the funniest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, you're gonna have a pretty sore shoulder. And so when he got down, when we were driving to your place, Muck, he's like, wonder if Muck has like something smaller than a 12 gauge that I could use. So when you had that 20 gauge, he was like, yeah, let's do it. So that was actually a pretty funny story behind the 20 gauge. But yeah, he's a pretty good shot.
We had a hunt like that a couple times this year too. There was another fella there that was out with us, laying in the coffins, always whining about his shoulder for some reason. It sort of cuts you off. I just wanted to just throw that in there quick. But yeah.
Who was that?
Yeah, to go for surgery.
Yeah.
I think that was the same hunt, I believe, that another friend in the same hunt was whining about, couldn't get out of there to retrieve birds because his back was too sore.
Yeah.
So I think that was quite the crew.
Well, I walked 3 miles that morning parking the truck. I left the lights on. I had to go back twice, and yeah.
And you missed the intro to Dawson's show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's because of that scatterbrained Blair. We did all we could do to hold him back.
Yeah.
When we were doing that intro and Blair's walking away halfway through, and all of a sudden he's walking back, and he's throwing out like advertisements, hey, sponsorships. I'm like, man, we're gonna get canceled for all these things.
I thought that was pretty epic because I thought we're gonna have to do a retake because it totally derailed me when he turned around and just walked away. I was like, what?
It was good.
Well, and that was I think one of the funnest parts about that upland day was honestly shooting that over under shotgun. It was just like super vintage. It was super fun. And then, we limited out on chickens. Yeah, it was only 2, but Jim kind of double whammied there right when we pulled up to that first field there. So that was pretty fun. And then it was fun because Dawson got to shoot And
Well, you know, the thing about with the
I'll get
chicken,
in on
like
it.
the thing about with chicken here is it is only two, and we have seen a surge of chicken the last few years, but there's many a times that I've went hunting and only maybe got one chicken the whole day. Like for a bird that flies fairly slow, they're tanks and they're hard to knock out of the air sometimes. So
We saw a lot of chickens that day too, like a lot.
yeah, we did. Well, and there just is a lot in the Southeast this year. I'm hoping next year, if we haven't had a terrible winter down here. We just ran into some cold weather just recently, but not a lot of snow. So I think we should have a pretty good uh, crop of birds next year. But that opening scene in the show where you got one out of the tree. There's a funny story about later in the day with Dawson. So Dawson's never shot a pheasant, and he's a resident. He's got his license. So Mike, we all seen this rooster run across the field, a canola field, and Mike's like, "Oh, here, Dawson, you take the gun and you shoot it," and easily could have shot it the first, I don't know, 3-4 minutes because it was right in front of us running. And I just kept saying to Dawson, I think I was running the camera even. I was like, "You're not shooting that thing on the ground. You're not shooting that thing on the ground. You're not shooting the thing on the ground." Eventually it just ran about 200-300 yards into a tree line. And then it got up on the other side, but Dawson won't let me that down. But yet we let you shoot that one out of the tree there. But
yeah, man, I don't think I've ever been so mad. You're just like, "Oh, you can't shoot your first rooster on the ground." I'm like, "Man, I don't care. Like, they taste the same."
I call those road runners. You can't shoot a road runner pheasant for your first one.
I will eat them. Doesn't matter how I shoot.
I have to agree with Dawson on this one. I would have way rather shot it and had it on the show, but
so once we got through that first initial batch of chicken, we got into a lot of Huns, didn't we? But man, they were hard. They were really hard. Like for early season birds, they're really skittish, and it was really tough.
Well, like there wasn't a lot of cover. I mean, the dogs helped a lot, obviously, but the biggest thing was like they just flew so differently than I was expecting. Because I mean, we saw tons of hunt, and I think we only managed 8 or 9 between all of us. Like we didn't actually hit a lot of hunts.
No.
Either. And we covered a lot of miles. I wish I was wearing my Fitbit that day because we covered a lot of miles on foot, not just in the truck, but on foot. So that was.
It can be quite a challenge to not try and flock shoot them too when you get those big cubbies popping up. He just starts stirring the soup and.
Yeah.
That's how Blair shoots geese.
No, that's how I shoot hunts. I ground pound them.
Yeah.
They were a lot of them that we never found actually in the stubble. They were all in those tree rows. So it was really hard to ground pound them because you didn't really know they were there until they flushed out of there. But
yeah, I thought they were really skittish. Well, it was quite windy that day that we were hunting too. So I think they were on edge a lot. And
after editing all those, like the episodes of the Upland and the Waterfowl, like I'll be honest with you, Dawson, I'll be looking to render your camera services when we come back down there, because I would have been so lost trying to film birds, like just the way that there's no background, like especially the geese, like when there's no background, it's just all sky, trying to like being able to track them and everything. Like we got some pretty epic footage. I got a lot of compliments on those episodes, just with like the footage we were able to get, and just getting them to cup right into the decoy spreads and stuff like that, and get it all on camera like that. Like it was really good. So thumbs up, Dawson.
Thanks, man. Yeah,
it was really good. I was like, man, I would have been so lost had I tried to do this myself or something like that. And I mean, you can't really. You got to have someone that's actually on the camera, and that's what they're doing.
And yeah, like I've hunted waterfowl since before I could walk, right? So then you just learn the behavior. You can kind of have an idea of what they're going to do. It definitely helps being able to kind of think ahead a little bit. I mean, obviously they're birds, you never know for sure, but you just kind of play the odds as you know.
And after I got home, I figured out how to use that ring on my camera to manual focus.
Oh, nice.
Remember how we were having problems with that? So you switched to yours?
Yeah.
I figured that out actually. So
I think
Nice.
that has a
We might
lot
have
to
try it
do.
out.
Like that has a lot to do with it. Like if you're a good hunter yourself, and like Dawson said, he's they've been outfitting and hunting geese his whole life. But I think if you're a good hunter yourself, you understand the angles it takes to be successful. I know it's been quite a few years since I did some custom filming, but I used to do that for a few guys down in the States. I'd go on quite a lot of hunts, and the reason they wanted me to run the camera is because I knew the angles that people wanted to see. I lots of times I think you get videographers that don't know the angles, and I think the focus is a big thing. If they don't understand where to have the focus of the camera, like Dawson, I thought you did an incredible job with the amount of movement the birds were doing to keep that in focus. Because if you watch the show, there's a lot of grass that is moving like that in front of the camera. So it's quite a talent. I thought you did a hell of a job too. Even on the hunt you did for your little program, I thought you did a really good job too.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. The biggest thing that I had to learn was like you can't shoot anything on autofocus. Like it all has to be manual. Like so when I'm in the blind sitting there, I got the camera up, right? And as they're coming in, I'm just slowly dialing that focus just to be able to track them like that. And it takes a little bit of practice, but you get used to it after a bit.
Well, and I think, from the other episodes that we were doing, like not the waterfowl in the upland, like we had some cameramen from Eagle Vision follow us and everything, and they know really how to get like really good angles and a lot of variety shots. And so we learned a lot of that. And it was interesting because the one guy, he had never really been on a mountain hunt. And I'll switch gears for a second. So when we were bison hunting in the mountains, like the Rocky Mountains, we actually spotted a 6-point bull elk, and we hadn't been seeing any bison. So we're like, well, we'll go up the slope to where the elk went over the ridge. We'll wait to see if he comes back in the evening to feed, whatever. So it was really steep, and so we got the bison episodes coming up pretty quick, and you'll see it's like there are some parts we were having to use hands and knees to crawl up. And so we sat up in this kind of bluff of trees up there, and when it was time to come down, that you don't really realize how much talent it takes to come down a mountain unless you've done it lots. And so we're kind of coming down the mountain, skipping, jumping, following the trails. And I look back up and my cameraman is just totally frozen on the side of the mountain. Just like, I'm like, you okay? And he's like, dude, I can't feel my legs. I'm like, what? He's like, everything's so wobbly. And he's like, you could tell he was like freaked right out. Like going up is easy, but coming down, and it was like super, super steep. And I had that actually happen to me once, my very first sheep hunt many years ago. I froze on the side of a mountain because I'm not a big fan of heights, and there's just a huge drop off cliff, and I froze. And so I had to kind of, like what normally would have taken me 10-15 minutes to get down took us over 45 minutes to get down. But it's there, like Muck was saying, there's a point to this, going back to what Muck was saying about being a hunter and a cameraman, like kind of like Dawson, is like huge advantage, because not just when you're on spot and stalking, but like the behavior of animals and how they're going to act and react to if you're calling them or not, and things like that is definitely a learned thing over this last season for sure.
Well, when we were down doing the upland hunt, like the advantage of that was it was a bonus. It really was never really going to be an upland hunt, was it, Mike? It was like you were coming down to spend a few days to do waterfowl, and I kept bugging you. I'm like, why don't you come down and we'll do some upland? And you're like, oh man, I really can't take the extra day. And I said, oh, it'll be worth it. And I think it panned out because I grew up in that area, so I sort of knew the farmers and the stuff like that. So the upland was basically a bonus. But I would say that your waterfall, the one you did those 2 days with the guys that are in the group here, was epic, only because of the crew that we had. I mean, I think about the talent that's here right now. It was definitely going to be successful. With B living up in the area that he just, the ranch that he just bought, and Blair living there, and Keith, of course, and Tony, who's not here with us tonight. I knew it was going to be successful because like with that many guys that are waterfowlers, especially like guys like Blair, who's been outfitting his whole life with COVID shutting things down, to get a full-time guide like that to come and help is you can't pay, you have to pay for that normally, right? So I knew it was going to be successful. And
well, let's put it this way. I had so much fun that I'm really hoping to plan 2 days of upland and 3 days of waterfowl when I come back down, because I want to get more footage. I'd love to hunt over water for the waterfowl next time. Like I really love to hunt ducks over water. I think we get some really awesome footage with the dog too, hunting over water, getting like a nice big slow motion launch into the water, stuff like that. But yeah, like the upland, I was definitely tired after walking all day. I felt the miles on the boots for sure, but yeah, and even my dad, like when we were traveling back up to BC, it was just something that we just don't get here in BC. Like we're so far on the western side of the flyway that, we get geese or whatever, but it's like the amount of geese we see here in a season is like what you see in a day down there. So it's like we never experienced something like when you're hearing those geese so loud and stuff like that. It was just like me and my dad are both buying new shotguns before we come down too. It's like, and stuff like that. So
Browning make good shotguns.
Well, there's a plug. But it's one of those things where it's just like it wasn't out of our element, but it was just something we don't get to experience here in BC. So people are watching that haven't had the opportunity to go and hunt Saskatchewan and probably Manitoba and, the eastern side of Alberta, are like right in the middle of that flyway. They got to. Like, it's unreal. Like when we were in the intro sequence to the waterfowl episode, when B was talking about his scouting that he had been doing before we got there, and, the thousands of these and a couple thousand of these. And I was like, my brain wasn't comprehending like that amount of birds in one particular area. Like it was just like, you could kind of tell in the episode, but I was actually trying to fathom that many birds in one place. Like it just doesn't happen here.
Well, it was a sweet spot, like all fall, that those pea fields of Kevin's there that we hunted. Like, I'm not kidding you. We started there September 1st, and we alternated those pea fields within 3 square miles. We were shooting, 5 out of 7 days a week. Yeah, just alternating all within 4 square miles. And I mean, we didn't have huge limits. Sometimes there was just myself and the kids, or Troy there, my buddy Troy, and Don, a taxidermist friend of mine. But we go out and shoot 2 limits, a limit or 3 limits in a morning. But we were doing it 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. And then as it later on, more birds moved in, more birds moved out, and it was just an awesome exchange of birds there. Like it was, when you don't have to drive, when you're only driving 2.5 miles to go shoot geese, or right out your back door, like the second day of the hunt there.
Yeah. And
then toss in a few hunts. So we, got over with Blair and Tony and Keith, and that Rockford hunt was, phenomenal. Like those hunts like that you just never forget. Like, we had great hunts, don't get me wrong, and I had some really great hunts right around the shack there. But yeah, that Rockford one was between that one, me, Muck, and Landen and Blair, me, Muck, and Dawson and Blair. It was a entertaining morning. It was fun. It was great. Like when you crush your limit, 4-man limit in, I just forget, under 30 minutes, boys.
Yeah, 35 minutes. I mean, that wasn't just an entertaining morning. That was an entertaining 10 hours.
And then that Rockford hunt, I don't know, there was 8 or 9 of us there, wasn't there? Close to that. Lee and a few other fellows joined us, and it was something else. Like, it was one heck of a year. And then Mock called and said, "Hey, I got this guy Mike's coming out from BC and he's starting a show, and you got any birds lined up?" I'm like, "Well, heck yeah, there's always birds lined up. You could shoot every day you want, if you wanted. I'm not going to say I got sick of it, but you know, when you're going 6, 7, I think it was 11 days in a row, I hunted geese, and it was just like talk about the grind, you know, the grind, get in there, you know, back check, forward check. And I'm not complaining. I'm sure not complaining. I'll tell you that. But after 10, 11 days in a row there, you're kind of like, oh, maybe I'll take a break. And then, oh, phone calls, get over here. We got a honker field over here. So we're hop in the truck and go, and, you know, but no, not complaining, but it was a good, like, great fall.
I couldn't believe some of the size of those birds though, too.
Oh yeah.
Like after seeing the size of those birds that we were, especially on the second day, we got some big birds there on that burnt field. And the more and more I think about hunting here, the more and more I think we more have a lot of lessers here and not a lot of like graders.
Yeah.
And because I personally haven't seen geese that size around here.
Well,
Like,
Blair will
there were
attest to
some
this.
big
We
birds.
had that early freeze in October, second week of October, and we had great weather after that, but it just froze up a lot of the good water holes, and I think a lot of birds passed over, like.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, we hit it at a good time just before that, I think.
yeah, but normally you don't have a big freeze up, you know, until, you know, late October, early November. You still got more birds around, but it's just like you say, you can't control the weather.
Well,
No.
for me, fellas, the hunts that we did primarily with Keith and Tony, and Blair and you, B, was hunting out of Tony's blind was something I've never done before. And I'll tell you, it kind of ruins you for field hunting if you enjoy shooting out of a stand-up blind, because I've always been a lay down blind guy. And I mean, we had that epic hunt up at Blair's camp there early in the season and lay down. But when met Tony and Keith and that first hunt, I'll back it up. Blair calls me at 11 o'clock at night. Blair lives 4 hours away from where I live. And Blair calls me at 11 o'clock at night and says, hey, you got to be here in the morning to go for a hunt. Tony and Keith got this field spotted out and you got to get here. I'm like, you're 4 hours away. That puts me at leaving here at 2 a.m. It's 11. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go. I tried to get Landen to come with me on that hunt, but Landen couldn't come. And so I said to Blair, I said, if Landen comes, I'm good, because then I'll have somebody to keep me awake. So I called Landen. Landen's like, oh man, I can't get away. Got a baby coming. Can't get away. And so I called Blair back like 15 minutes later. I'm like, I'm out, dude. That's just too short a notice. He's like, he just simply says, get here. So I'm like, well, so I hung up the phone and I'm like, okay, I guess I left at 2 o'clock in the morning and I rolled into their place around just after 5, met Tony and Keith, and hunting out of that stand-up blind was something I've never done before, but it just ruined me because it was so awesome, because you got 4 or 5 guys lined up like we did in your show, Mike. And you know, you're jabbing at each other and you're talking. And I think I took an epic picture of Blair there. He's on his phone and the geese are starting to come and stuff like that. But anyways, I thought that combined with Landen's dog on your hunt, shooting with these guys out of that blind was just the camaraderie alone made that hunt so. And the fact that we had some lots of honkers come in, but tons of ducks came in and were cooperative. And I think that's what made that hunt so awesome. And, you know, moving forward to Landen's dog, I called B and I'm like, hey, my nephew wants to come and bring his dog. And B's like, no dogs. I've had it with dogs and people bringing their dogs in waterfowl. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure his dog's good. He's like, well, if his dog sucks, it's staying at the house. And I'll say, Landen, like, Tally was incredible from the first bird that fell. She was just a machine.
Oh, amazing dog. I've only worked with a few dogs that, you know, that are as, you know, as good as Tally. So it was, but I've worked at a heck of a lot more that I don't have the time. It's, you know, you put a lot of work into stuff like that. You know, you get up, you got, you know, trailers and decoys and money and time, and you guys want to bring their dogs. I get it, but you know the dog from before, and that dog doesn't even know how to sit, but you want to just make it a hunting dog overnight. Yeah, I've been down that road a few times, but no, getting back to Tally, I couldn't believe it. In the blind, no whimpering, no whining, like no, always listened, always at the heel. And it just, you didn't know she was there until she was sent for a bird.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just amazing. Like
When-
Landon, you've
when
done
we,
an amazing job with that, with your dog. Like, yeah, give yourself a pat on the back for that, because she's phenomenal.
Well, to start off the hunt, that was the first thing he said after we were all set.
Yeah.
First volley, if she's not working out, the truck's unlocked, you can put her in the kennel. And I said, well, she works pretty
Yeah,
good.
well, you know me, I
so-
usually call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
I don't there's no point in beating around the bush, but anyways, no, it was amazing. It was awesome.
One, I was hoping we would talk about the dog because, so that day that we drove up to B's farm there, we had done a full day of upland, and I was pretty tired, and I remember talking to my dad, and I was like, man, oh man, like I sure hope we have a really awesome waterfowl dog, because the pointers that we had used that day for the upland were super awesome, and it was fun watching them work. Like, I used to run a narcotics drug dog, so I've worked with working dogs, and I love watching dogs work. And yeah, when Tally was carrying geese the same size as her back to the blind, it was like, holy smokes, like this dog wants to go get it. Like, and then I think there was one that we just caught the tail end of, and I know Blair, he had to run out and get one of the geese, but she was trying to get two at once there. It was like to the way right of the blind, and they both fell right by each other. And she was like, okay, like, which one do I take? I'll take both. And then her mouth just wasn't big enough. So, but like that was just unreal. Like, yeah, it was exciting.
It's definitely handy, especially when you get those long Hail Mary sky bust ones that carry 85, 90 yards.
Yeah.
We
saves
did
the
have a
lungs
couple
for
runners that hit that tree line, and it's a pretty good jaunt.
Well, even that one that we got in the show there, that long
Right.
fall where it's just like coming down through the screen, and Dawson is following and following. Like, how high was this bird? And that bird had to have been 90 yards out there, and you could hear the thunder when that thing hit the ground. Like,
Yeah.
that was.
I wonder who shot that one.
I mean, I think in the video I claimed it, but
Yeah, you're like, oh, don't worry, guys. Dad came in and got that one. I think that's exactly what was said.
Getting back to the blind, Mike, that is what makes those hunts so special, that it's really hard to capture on video because of the jabbering that's going on behind the scenes. Blair was beside me to my left, and Jim was to my right, and then you were to Jim's right. And Blair just was talking my friggin' ear off about I had to use his gun at one point because you were using mine, and Jim's was using my other one. And Blair was just talking my ear off about using a Beretta and all kinds of things. And it was just, that's the stuff that makes these hunts epic, because of the talk that's in there. The one that you're talking about, that really long shot that Blair got, and I'll give him credit, he got it. He didn't tell anybody he was going to skybust that bird that was like a quarter of a mile in the air. He just also stood up and shot, and it just flew. And I remember Tally and Landon were on the other side of the road, and thank goodness you were there, because that's where that bird ended up.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the longer ones, for sure. It was, yeah, there was, and that the whole blind experience too, because like there's not a lot of times you go big game hunting where you're talking to a bunch of guys, like everyone's like, shut up, just shut up, everybody, don't even make a noise, right? So it was very refreshing to sit in a blind with a bunch of guys and talk while you're hunting, and listening to you guys call. I mean, my goodness, like I'm not even gonna try. Like, I'll just let you guys do all the calling, because I'm not even gonna try to get there.
I'll tell you, B turns all business when you're in the blind, though. If your face is too shiny, or if you suck at calling, he'll just say, "Stop calling, muck."
Yeah, I know. I know. Landon, a couple times when we were on that burnt field, you're like, Mike, keep your head down. They can see your face. Your sunglasses like mirrors. Take your sunglasses off. I was like,
Oh, and you had that orange hat on.
I know. And then I put my hood over it. And then Landon's like, Mike, take off your sunglasses. It's like mirrors. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry.
But it's not so bad like on cloudy days, but when that sun is cresting down and in it, or it's coming into them, and they see that stuff from a long ways away. Especially
we were learning so much. Like my dad and I, like we don't know that stuff, right? So it was super fun to learn all that stuff, and on all the guys in the blind, that definitely made me go out. I'll be bringing a couple of 4K GoPro Hero 8s with me to set up in the blind, so we can get like full on in the blind. Like we'll just run them like the whole morning, and I can just cut it all up later and stuff like that, because
just get
it was
lemon
really
meringue pies just looking up at the balls.
Oh
yeah, and some of the quotes coming out of the blinds are priceless. Like,
oh yeah,
I'd look, Blair'd look over, we'd be out getting geese in, and like, look at these guys. It's like effing whack-a-mole over there, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody's heads are up, popping up and down.
Blair, you got to tell the story about hitting B in the head with a goose. That's epic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I wish we had a camera in Rockford. That was the best.
Yeah.
And I always intentionally like to shoot birds right above the blind so someone gets hit. And it worked out perfect. It was coming above like that, boom. He was behind the blind. That was the highlight of my whole year. All I heard is boom. Oh, my ear. It broke my ear off.
Yeah. I look up, I'm on my knees because we're in that gully, that drainage ditch there, and it's a nice hide, like perfect hide. That I was stacking geese up. I was kind of the bird dog that morning myself for other reasons, but I was running along, and so I got in the corner behind Tony, and boom, and I look up. I was like, oh yeah, there comes another one. Here comes another one. Here comes another one. Oh, and I just turned my head at the right time, and I thought it tore my ear off. It kind of hit me flush. Thank God it didn't hit me in the jaw. It probably would have knocked me out. So I got up. My ear was just numb. I thought I was hanging off my head by a couple of threads. I was like, boys, you got any duct tape in there to tape my ear up? I'm like, hey, Blair, no, seriously, is my ear still on my head? It feels like it's gone. So yeah, that was a classic.
That was awesome.
Yeah. I think it was Landon's line there the one day. Hurry up so they can come. I can miss, or what was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to get Tally back in the blind. Come on, girl. Let's get in here so they can miss all these ones again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, when we were the first morning, I think we had all just missed like 5 geese, and there was like 80 shells went off and nothing fell. And then another one was coming, and Blair's like, everybody shut up, get ready, they're coming. And Lana's like, no, don't worry about this, you guys. We're going to miss them all again anyways. There was so much steel flying without hitting anything. It was just so funny.
There's a couple of expensive geese in the video too.
Yeah.
My dad was watching. He was like, "Oh, who is shooting there?" He's, "Wow, some guys were shooting on the other side at other geese."
The BC boys were over there raining steel. 18
shells and 1 out of 2 fall.
That's the best part about being the cameraman. Like,
but that's what makes it fun. Yeah.
As a cameraman, I can say that I can honestly say I never missed a bird the whole time. And I can watch people's guns, and as a recoil, nothing falls. Like, I can see who. Like, I can tell you who missed them all, who hit what. So it's some of these guys claim to be pretty good shots, and I can like honestly say they're lying.
But I can definitely tell you, it was like a third the way through that morning when we ran out there and we opened up that spread. They came in way, way better after that. I don't know, but I think you were saying, be like, oh man, I think the U shape is too tight because they weren't coming in; they were coming on the other side. And when we opened up that other side, like more of a J instead of a U. They started coming in way better.
Yeah, sometimes, so especially when you got lots of guys, and you got I find with big limits, well, how many geese could we have shot that day? There was 7 of us. There was 8 of us.
There was 8 shooters.
Yeah, 8 shooters. So 64 geese, right? But things change in the morning. The wind changes, or the sun's different, or the shadows are different. And sometimes you got to make a quick change. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they just don't like you.
Yeah.
and they're wised up, you know, like that was, some of them geese probably been shot at 15 times before then, that, you know, that saw that I'm pretty sure they get knowledgeable pretty quick, you know.
Well, for
Well,
a little
definitely-
bit there too, on top of the decoy spread, we were battling when that sun came up and it was hitting that lens on the camera.
Yeah.
That stuck out like a sore thumb, and we just had to battle and try and get through that for the short period of time that sun came up. That hurt.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Well, I'm hoping like to bring some of my GoPros, and I want to actually set them in the spread so that we can get some footage from in the spread too. I think it'd be pretty fun.
So Keith, you've been pretty quiet. You got any good stories to tell us from this year?
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of glitching out here, so I wasn't sure if I said anything, whether you guys could actually hear me or not. But
Yep, we got it.
good stories. Well, I guess when Blair and I took Tony's truck.
Oh, that was
The
great. You
second-
got to tell that story.
Well, maybe I'll let Blair tell that story, but I'll start it off.
And you know, I was even part of that, and I didn't even try to be, but because Tony didn't really know me, it just added credibility to your story.
True. But I'll let Blair tell that story.
Well, yeah, because that morning, that was the first shoot we did. He was supposed to come with us that morning.
Right,
Yep.
the
And he
first
was
morning.
sick the first morning, and he was sick. So he gave us his truck because his blind and everything was in there. So we hunted that morning or whatever and filmed. And then we were going back to town, and Muck come up and said, "Hey, tell him the motor's blown in." So I phoned Tony, and then I texted him first about the temperature. I said, "How hot does this truck run? Your thermostat? How high does it go?" Because it was always overheating on him all fall. And sure, and then he's like, "Why? What happened?" I said, "Well, we're sitting on the highway. Your truck's smoking. I think the engine went. We got a mechanic here said that the engine's gone."
Yeah.
So he was worked right up, worried that we were stranded on the highway. I told Keith, I said, "We better get to town because he's going to be coming out here looking for us." We just pulled into his yard, and my power steering had went in my truck. So he was trying to get my truck out of his yard, and he was just turning to get out, and he sees us pull up in the truck. He just gets out and starts hollering.
Yeah. It's 240 degrees hot. Yeah.
That
Oh,
was-
is he?
He'll get
He
even
was
someday,
mad.
though.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. for
So
sure.
early in the year, before we got into pursue the hunt, Dawson, you, myself, Blair, and B, we did the hunt up north. When we were actually elk hunting, you got yourself a nice 5x5 with your bow. But that hunt that we did there, I think, was part of the highlight of the year for me when it came to waterfowl hunting. I'd hunted over blinds, for years, but Blair and I were elk hunting together for 3 days before that, and we seen
Yeah.
this field right full of cranes and white geese and honkers, and the elk hunting, frankly, wasn't that great. I mean, you were successful, but for us, we didn't see it a whole lot. So Blair's had told me before I came up, make sure you throw your shotgun in case we go goose hunting. So I did, and B only lives, 35 minutes away from there. So we made the decision that night before. We're like, you know what, we're going to forfeit elk hunting. And the hunt we did that morning was the highlight of my year. And I mean, for a couple of reasons. We got a 4-man limit, whatever, in 35 minutes, and we got some snows and stuff like that. But I got my first banded bird. I mean, I've been hunting geese my whole adult life and never was fortunate enough to pull a banded bird. I know that's hard to believe, but I got my first banded bird. And so I'm going to get Donnie Wolk to mount it up for me. But it was just epic. Like when you see birds falling out of the air like that, it's super, super addicting. And to me, that was the highlight of the year when it comes to waterfowl hunting. That, and of course, the hunt we did with everybody here.
Well, that was a really good hunt that morning or whatever. But we were skinning that elk till 1 or 2 in the morning. Dawson's elk that night. After the big 6x6 Can-Am brought it out.
It
Sponsorship.
overheats, Blair.
Yeah, I almost flipped it. I did. I almost flipped it when we were going in there. But
You did. You did almost flip it.
That was an awesome 10 hours. I shot that 10 minutes before we went in after him, and I mean, yeah, I guess we went in after him, and he came in screaming. We got right in on his cow, started screaming. He came back at us, I shot him at like 12 yards. I was on one knee. I was like aiming up at him because that's the only lane I had. My cam was like that far off the ground. And so we shoot him, go back. Blair and Muck videos for me, and Blair comes in with that big 6x6 Can-Am. I mean, it overheats, like I said, but it's still all right. And yeah, so we skinned that out. We cooked up the tenderloins that night, right? I think. And so we ate tenderloins at 1:30 in the morning. BS'd around till 2, and all of a sudden the boys are like up at 3:30, ready to go goose hunting, and just absolutely slobbed a bunch of sky pandas, B?
Yeah. It was damn good. Yeah. Heck of a fall. Like, you know, lots of new faces. Blair and I go back a couple of years. We met at, always talking online back and forth here and there. But like, we met a few years back at a whitetail function, and yeah, Muck and I go back. We've been hunting together off and on, you know, whenever things would work out between shift work and that sort of thing for 5, 6, 7 years now as well, here and there and everywhere. And meeting Mike and Landen, and I'd met Landen's dad a couple times. We'd go snowmobiling with him, but it was good to meet Landen, heard a lot about him, Dawson, and you know, Big Tony. Like yeah, she was that to me is a huge part of it. Like with a good group of guys, and it doesn't matter who it is. We all got, you know, hunting partners and other guys that like to hunt and do all this and that. But you know, we had a hell of a time. And yeah, there's sometimes like, you know, guys get serious. I do about it sometimes because I want success, you know, but it's, then again, you got to take a step back. I do once in a while. It's say, hey man, look what you're doing right now. You know, look, you're having fun. You're doing this, you're doing that. It's not always about, you know, the harvest or the kill or the, you know, this and that. It sure is nice. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, just all that fun and you know, the stories and laughs and jokes, and guess what, we get to sit here right now 3 months later and you know, and BS about it. So
it's funny how things surface
Keith,
too.
you know, meeting Keith and you know, just a gem of a fella. And I know who's camp cook next year though, I'll tell you that. Briskets he's been frying up. Yeah, like, boy, I gotta step aside.
Yeah, the smoke rings out. Hey, check those smoke rings out.
See, that is the stuff that people don't see in the hunts like this that we make. Like, you know, that video that we did with Dawson, that just it's absolutely epic. And you know, and of course, I don't know what it is about me, but you guys tend to get your funds at me. But all of a sudden, 3 months later, this picture of me half comatose asleep surfaces, and I'm like, where did that even come from? And
there's like a 15-second video of it.
Oh man, it's literally the best thing that was shot that whole trip.
I was so tired. I can't believe you guys took that video of me.
You already slept for an hour in the truck too.
Yeah.
That was when he's like, hey, check this camera out. What do you think of it? This is what I'm going to use for filming. So I looked at it. I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, it'll do the trick. Like, it does good. And I look over and Muck's just sitting there. He's like, okay, just like out of it. So I grabbed the camera and I just like put it, like, it's on my hip. So like, he can't see it. And he's looking like dead at me, like right in the face. But the camera's on my hip so he can't see it. And I have this screen flipped up. So I just kept peeking down at it and I'm zooming in. And he's just like, and I'm looking at him like we're like eye contact. Like, it was getting weird. But I mean, so I'm filming them, and it was the best thing ever. And then he like messages me like 2 weeks later. He's like, "Did you take this?"
You know, it's stuff like that that just makes these hunts so epic. Like it's amazing. Like, you know, little things like that, and like, of course, the jabbering when we get back to camp and sitting over and having a beverage and just visiting and telling stories and stuff like that. It was truly, you know, COVID has been so bad for so many ways, but for things like this, it's been really good, because I don't know if a hunt this epic would have been put together so in short of a time, but had been so successful if it wasn't for COVID and stuff like that. And you know, at the time there was no restrictions about groups of us getting together, but yeah, it was amazing. It was truly amazing.
Well, and you know, that's just another thing. Like, I mean, I can't thank all of you guys enough. I mean, I think I only told Muck I was coming like 2.5 weeks before I actually got there or something.
Well,
Because
Muck,
my
Muck-
fall was so full that I was like, Muck, I don't know if I can make it. Like, honestly, like, because we had so much planned and we were trying to cram all these episodes into a fall because we got started late with Sportsman. Like, we didn't get a spring, like a full spring out of it. So but Muck's like, I promise you won't be disappointed. You gotta come. And I was like, well, if I come, these are the dates I can come, because that's like only just before my bison hunt. So that's got to be it. And he's like, okay, we'll make it work.
At least you gave Muck 2.5 weeks notice. He gave me 2.5 days notice.
Oh, I think that's not true.
Yeah, me and Muck were supposed to be going hunting at my family's property that weekend, and I shot him a message on, I think it was Wednesday. Hey, we still on for this weekend? And he's like, well, actually, there's a shoot kind of going on with Mike Friesen from Pursue the Hunt, and I'm like, well, okay. You guys want a dog? I don't even have to shoot. I'll just bring the dog. And he's like, oh, I'll see. And that was my foot in the door on this whole operation.
That was awesome. I
Love
love the
that.
way it came together. And like, that's the thing, like, you know, that we're going to keep trying to do better on the show is just showcasing the stuff around and behind and how hunts get started and stuff like that. You know, like we had such a big learning curve of just trying to like how to put a hunting episode together. But you know, like our whole show as we progress, we really want it to be exactly what Muck was talking about. It's like getting a group of guys together, and like I'd love to shoot more of like, you know, stuff like getting back from the hunt and cooking food and all that kind of stuff, because like too many people, and you know, if people want to watch my show and just want to watch me kill stuff, they'll be be sadly disappointed.
Yeah.
But you know, you know, that's not real hunting either.
No, it's not
and,
raw. You know, that's what I like about your show, Mike. It's raw. You know what I mean? Like it's great hunting, and you might not be killing something every day or every show or whatnot or whatever, and it shows you. You know, you're talking to your butcher, you're talking to your local people around there, you're at your sponsor's place, and plugging him with making knives there and stuff. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff. And the work that goes into it in the background, you know, like it's good. Like you're huffing and puffing. You guys are hauling that moose out of the bush. I thought, you know, boy, I don't miss those days. And you guys like bagged, you know what I mean? And that's how it is, soaking wet and sweat and tears and blood. And
well, I honestly wish we could have put more footage of us hiking out than we did, but like there was just so much leading up to that point. Like there was a lot of frustration of like it was just so hot. Anyways, but like when we were hiking it out, so I've hiked out a couple of animals, but Jeremy has not. And so I was like, oh, we're gonna put your pack frame to use tonight. And it wasn't a big bull moose. Like, I mean, around our place we shoot a lot of immature bulls, you know, totally legal, but it's just like we don't have the big paddle bulls and stuff. And so thankfully it wasn't a paddle bull where we shot it, because it was 1.4 kilometers uphill only. And so when we got this loaded on, he's like, I think between you and my pack we can get this whole thing out in one trip. I'm like, okay. So I put bull shoulders, neck meat, and back straps, rib meat, like everything that wasn't the hindquarters in my pack, because I didn't have a good frame pack, and Jeremy had like the external frame pack. So he's like, I'll take both hindquarters. I was like, good for you, buddy. So we strapped these suckers up, and he's like, dude, I think this weighs more than me. And so we get to what we call the intersection, where it's where these major highway of game trails in that particular area intersect. So we get to that, and that was our halfway point. It took us 3 hours to get 750 meters. And we get to that point. I'm like, dude, we got to drop weight. Like, we got to drop weight. We'll get the rest up to the top, come back for the rest. So we dropped half our weight, went up, dropped it, came back down, came back up. But Jeremy's like, we're going to hunt this place again next year, aren't we? I was like, oh, yeah, we are. He's like, do you think it's in maybe Pursue the Hunt's budget to get maybe like a couple of pack horses or like some mules or something we could use? Because it was a haul. Like, I mean, it like 1.4 clicks uphill. That was a long way. So, but that's just the thing is, I can't wait for everybody. I'll put a short plug in here for the bison episodes that are coming up, because this week coming up we got the whitetail, which is a good episode actually. We do this year's whitetail footage, and then I actually sling it back to some of the 2019 stuff we did the previous year. So it's a really good one. And then we're actually replaying the moose footage, because I actually needed some extra time to put these bison ones together. But the bison one's coming up. Our plan was to do 2 episodes. I ended up doing 3 because there was just so much to put in. I'll put in a tiny spoiler alert. In the first episode, we have a pretty sweet grizzly encounter. And but each episode has its thing. And it really puts backcountry hunting to a little bit of a different perspective, a little bit. So that one now I'll just put in the plug for the video cast. The trilogy, as I call it, is what's going to end the season for us, and it ends on a pretty unexpected epic note. So it's pretty good. But just all in all, I talked to a lot of other show hosts, which has been really good too, about, hey, this happened on this hunt, like, what should I air about it and this and that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, like their input's really great, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, it's our show.
Yeah, it's your show.
And it's like, I don't care if I put something on that's gonna get me flack or not, as long as it's not illegal, it's ethical, and it shows what real hunting is. That's it's like, that's what we really want to do. And as the season gets further along, we did that more and more, because honestly, like when we first started it was such short notice, and we were trying to get things going. I almost did things a little too cookie cutter, of like just what I've seen other people do, and I didn't really know how to make it our own show. But as we got more into the editing and more into the season, I was like, no, we're going to do it our way. We're going to showcase it the way we want to. And there'll be people that are going to really appreciate it. And there's going to be people who are like, man, you know what? Unless they're killing stuff every episode, I'm not interested. That's fine. But I was honestly a little bit worried. It's like, oh, man, I want to make this good first impression. I want everybody to watch my show, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know what? I want people to watch our show that want to watch our show for the way we do our show. And season 2 is, I'll give a little spoiler. Oh, wait, I'm still practicing. Oh. There's a little spoiler alert.
Chalkboard there?
Give me a break, B. I'm still learning.
Oh, I don't have a clue.
But no, we're gonna be switching it up with some species. We're gonna be showcasing more BC stuff in terms of like the different landscapes, because we have so many different variable landscapes and stuff. So we're gonna be doing it the way we want to do it for a whole season that's coming up. But anyways, I know we're
another bonus of it is you're not focusing and zooming in on product sponsor, what I mean, sponsor stuff or that sort of thing. Like half these guys are they're filming their binoculars. I don't give two rats a hoot about what kind of binoculars you're using. You know what I mean? Like I guess that comes with sponsorship, and then you start getting from them and products. I understand that they want you to promote them, but I don't see a whole lot of that on there. You know what I mean?
I think like there is a coming from kind of wrapping up, and I officially wrapped up our season 1 filming yesterday, which I was super stoked about. Or not filming, editing. But like I did talk to a few show hosts before we got going, and because I'm like that too. I don't like watching guys putting their backpack and their arrow and their bow and their this and their that in front of the deer when they're doing their talk. It's like that's a little much, but there is ways to slip it in there, and like I'm not even sponsored by Savage or Hornady, just FYI for anyone who's listening. But like on the moose hunt, I was so pumped. I was like, man, that Hornady, like, that Savage 270 with that Hornady bullet, just put it down quickly, just because I just like using the gear.
Yeah.
You know, and I just said it. It wasn't, I'm not getting paid to say that at all. And the industry is definitely, I've seen it go where they're doing less what they call it, like hard selling, where they're, you know, zooming in on the binoculars, and some of that's just b-roll. Like, you know, like on our bison hunt, we got shots of us, you know, looking through our spotting scopes, looking for bison and whatever else. You know, it doesn't look, but it doesn't look out of the ordinary. Like, it's not like we're zooming in on the logo of the spotting scope or something of that, or going, wow, this loopholed or vortex spotting scope was really clear. You know, we're not doing any of that stuff. And some of the product sponsors we have, they don't really want the hard sell anymore because they know it's turning the viewers off. And so we actually, for season 2, we actually got a really awesome coffee sponsor on for season 2, Hell's Half Acre Coffee. And you know, we're working with them, and we're actually working at possibly even doing our own blend of coffee for the show and stuff like that, which is kind of cool, like dabbling in that manufacturing aspect. But you know, we'll be featuring little bits of here and there, obviously, you know, with it in the show, but it's not like they want us zooming in on the bag of coffee while we're out in the mountains. So you there's a fine line. Like, you definitely want to make sure, like, in my world, you know, I want people to watch our show. I love getting feedback, you know, fans like, hey, you know, great first season, whatever. But my job as a show host and a producer, first and foremost, is to make sure that my sponsors are happy with what we're doing. So I'm always checking in with them and saying, hey, how have you been liking the show? Is there anything you don't like that we're doing with your product or whatever? Right?
Yeah.
Because that's really important, because I want retention of sponsors so that they stay on with us. Obviously, it makes my job easier not having to go look for sponsors every year after year. But at the same time, a lot of the feedback is like, no, you're doing great. You know, we've been hearing good things about the show too, and everything like that. So that's great. You know, and I don't want to hear, no, you're showcasing our products too much, and you know, you're hard selling it too much. And so, you know, we're definitely trying not to do that, where we're zooming in too much on specific products we're using. And it also leaves it up to the audience to ask us, you know, too. It's like, hey, what brand of shot were you using in the waterfowl episode, right, or whatever, or you know, what gun we're using. It leaves a little bit of mystery if you don't showcase everything you're using all the time, because it actually gives you more audience engagement. If you answer all the questions in your episode, no one wants to talk to you because they already know everything. So
I don't like video footage of high brass though.
All right, I'll take that out for the next one.
So, Mike, what do you got coming? Are you coming to Saskatchewan next year?
So yes,
Or this year, sorry.
100%. And so Muck and I have been talking about coming for Spring Bear, which super pumped about that, because we don't have the opportunity to hunt over bait. Oh, there's the volley. That's the GoPro volley right now. I know it's hard to see it in B's footage there, but Muck was using, I'm going to interrupt myself. Muck was using the GoPro he had, and that volley was my favorite sequence on that day for sure, because it was such a wide panoramic view, so you could see everything, and it was just birds just pluck 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 just dropping, and it was awesome. It was epic. So anyways, going back to the spring, we have Spring Bear planned, coming down to join Muck and head out to bear camp, which apparently there's going to be a few others joining us, which I'm really excited about that, because if we can film multiple bears hitting the dirt, you know, love that. And like I said, we don't get an opportunity to hunt over bait in BC, which is fine. I don't mind the spot and stock, but there is some, I only got one opportunity so far in my hunting life to hunt bears over bait in Alberta, and I had tons of fun. Not because it's like, oh, it's way easier or whatever, but I've never got to see that many bears up close before, you know, and like watch bear behavior and all that other stuff that you don't really get to see when you spot and stalk bears, because you're just simply not seeing enough bears. And so that's what I really enjoy hunting over bait, is just watching bear behavior. So anyways, so this, yes. And then I managed to contact another acquaintance I met online, and he's got a hog hunting outfit up near, I think it's Prince
Is it by Battleford?
Candle Lake.
Prince
Prince
Albert,
Albert.
north of Saskatoon there.
Yeah.
So on the way back, Jeremy's actually flying into Saskatoon. I'm picking him up on the way out of camp, and we're going to go north, and we're going to hunt hogs for 3 days. So it'll be really great, because we'll probably come out of there with 2 or 3 episodes, which is great, because I love doing that when I do trips, to make, everything just not more worth it, but just get a little bit more out of the trip. But it'd also be a unique opportunity as well, because we don't have wild pig hunting in BC. And so it's just great to just kind of, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. So that's what we got coming up in the springtime for Saskatchewan. And the hope is definite to come back kind of near the end of October again, loop it back with you boys, but do more. I want to do more.
I'd like to see
really
a crane. Blair and B, can you make this happen? Crane hunt and maybe a snow hunt?
Not at the end of October. Cranes kind of moved through by then, like up there anyways, but
A little bit late.
The first week of October is the best.
yeah.
Last week in September, first week in October is good for sandhills, ducks, geese, and snows. Like,
well, that's with what we have lined up for the fall. Like right at the end of September into October is the best time for me to come down. And but like I say, I definitely want to do more. I'd like to feature some more unique parts, especially around the waterfowl. Like if we can hunt over water, I'd love to get the dog hunting and getting waterfowl out of the pond or wherever we're hunting over, and more upland, because simply we can upland hunt here in BC. I just never really got into it because I didn't really know how fun it was. I mean, it's definitely, I think, more fun with a dog, but I don't know. There's something just like really old school and vintage about upland bird hunting. Like, I don't know, it's because like we're wearing those like really weird looking vests, and I was using an over under shotgun or whatever, but I just felt like so old school, and it was super fun and awesome. So I don't know. I can't wait to come back and do that. Like I can do upland here, but I don't have a dog for one. And I mean, we got tons of grouse around our places up, but I hope to do some upland up here with my daughter. She's actually in the middle of taking her hunting course license between last week and this week. So she's really excited about that. And then we're going to be able to do some more stuff here this fall with her, because we'll be definitely featuring a deer hunt with her in the fall, 100%. I'm not sure if it's me whitetail or mule yet. And then hopefully a little bit of bird hunting as well. So that's the plans for Saskatchewan for 2020.
But this spring, when you're coming up for bear, don't rule out a spring snow goose at the same time. When are you coming in May?
Let me check
May.
my phone. It's the second week in May.
See, if you're coming in early May, there could be a snow goose shoot even going on. We could do a spring snow goose.
So my plan
bear.
is to, like, the way it lines up with Muck's work shift is to come the week of the 9th to the 15th of May. So if we were to do something, we'd have to do something before the bear hunt, because I'm picking Jeremy up on the 14th from the airport to go do the hog hunt. So I'm not going to say I'm going to rule it out, but honestly, you might have to pass that one by my wife, because I've got enough trips planned away from home that you might have to ask her permission before I can.
But the nice part about that is we can hunt those snows in the morning. Like you can do a spring snow goose hunt in the morning and still go bear hunting in the afternoon.
Yeah,
Well,
100%.
here's the thing, Blair. If I were to come, I think we're heading up to bear camp on the Monday, right, Muck? On the 10th?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check.
I think it's the 10th, because I think I was coming in on the 9th, because I think you were on day shift on the 9th. So I was and then you were off. So I was coming in on the 9th, and then from there. So I don't know if we'd be able to scoop Muck into that particular hunt, Blair, but I mean, why don't you and I talk about maybe doing something a couple days before if it's not too much out of the way.
Like,
It's not like you, at the Duck Mountains or the
not
Manitoba
that bad of a
border ain't
drive.
far from us. Like to do a spring snow shoot in the morning and bear hunting, you're like 40 minutes.
Yeah, if
Like
that.
it's not.
Yeah.
You're not going to be far from your camp.
Because you're mostly hunting bears like after lunch into the late evening,
5
aren't you?
o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, like you're going to sit from 5 to 9 or
Yeah.
5 to 10.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like we're gonna want to sit around bear camp all day.
Nope. That's
No,
a
like,
great
I mean,
idea.
And early May, that's if you're in that second week in May, that's prime time snow goose when they're rolling in.
You
It
guys,
could,
you know,
I'm just saying it might work out that we could do a more spring snow in the morning and bear hunt in the evening. That's
you guys are just slowly making your way like into a soft spot in my heart. You know, you're working in there, you guys. No
Well, just to
blushing,
throw it-
Landon. Stop blushing.
just to throw it
You're
out there,
from BC. We know you have a soft heart.
for you guys, if anybody's around Saskatoon that weekend of May 8th and 9th, I think Lee Kojakar and myself are planning a hunt for Saskatoon that weekend.
Okay.
I
Okay.
only live an hour from Saskatoon, Keith. Let me know.
And I have family in Saskatoon as well.
Well,
but yeah.
It
I'll
really
come.
sounds like this is coming together rather quickly.
I mean, I fire up the old Dodge. Me and Tally are there in hour and a half, 2 hours, as long
I
as
was
there's
gonna
no
say-
RC.
And I'm
Some
riding
about my
shotgun,
soft-
Wando.
Some about my soft heart, Landon. I think one year we're gonna have to get you to accompany us on a fly-in stone sheep hunt, and then you'll have to tell us how soft our hearts are after a good old 10-day stone sheep hunt.
You wouldn't have to twist my arm too very hard.
I
I'd
know,
be
I
into
know.
that instantly.
Well, fellas, I think it's time we wrap her up. Is there any parting words you want or stories you want to share before we call her a night?
Oh,
Blair, I
did.
know we were talking about pond shooting. You got into an epic greenhead hunt, didn't you? With a couple thousand greenheads or something?
Oh yeah, in my brother's dugout there in November, we hit them up good, the greenheads in the late season. But no, at Brandon's camp there, we had a heck of a duck hunt there in the snow. Oh, me and Tony were sitting beside each other. We were crying, laughing. There's thousands of ducks coming over our heads. They almost hit Tony's head. They just kept coming and coming, and we were limited out, and they just kept coming. Like that was phenomenal.
Yeah,
That was
I've seen
And
one
then
like that for a while. That was pretty crazy. Holy smokes.
and then I come out the next morning, and how many did we get?
Yeah.
Zero.
Right.
Yeah.
Zero.
And then the
did-
afternoon, though, we made up for it, didn't we?
The
The next
afternoon was a
morning
good
we did.
shoot.
Or was
Yeah.
it that evening we went for Canada's? Yeah, we made up for it that next day. We killed that. There's where we killed big Canada geese. That shoot.
Those were
Yeah.
huge. Yep.
There was a couple huge birds, probably 14, 15 pounds.
I still got one in the freezer. That big one, not that one that give you a little bit of a whooping there. Holy, that thing had to have had 15 rounds in him, and he still give you a shin kicking.
Yeah, and I even give them this.
Yeah, that's right.
The
Yeah,
finisher.
the finisher.
I love that thing.
I want to hear Muck and Blair saying "The Boy in the Bright White Sports Car" again in the blind. That's what I'm looking for. Here they come.
Oh God.
That's what's nice about bird hunting is the socializing, the fun, and those stand-up blinds. And there's 8, 9 of you. You can, and the shooting, the action, the talking, the fun. That's what makes it the funnest hunts of the fall are those waterfowl shoots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, those boys from down south back home there, that come up, like they've done some bird hunting before, and like waterfowl hunting and whatnot. It's probably more puddle jumping, a little bit of field stuff and that sort of thing. But they had an absolute blast. Like that when we shot by that other burnt stubble. That was I think the week after Mike left and the boys left.
Mm.
But there were some big honkers in that crew too that we no ducks, but it was good. They had an absolute blast. They're just and then the duck shoot the next morning and then that following afternoon too. Holy smokes. Yeah, they had a blast. Still talking about it.
I know I talked to Tony today, and he's going to build some kind of a flip lid for his blind now. That stand-up blind. We're going to have some kind of roof. He said this summer he's going to rig something up on his blind.
Oh, that blind, it's in my blood now. I'm thinking of making my own too, because you know, I hunted 3 times in that blind, 4 times in that blind, and the geese did not deter from it. They just came in waves. It was amazing.
I just want to talk like for a second about the hide when you're hunting like that. Like George Lynch the other day brought it up, how the geese adapt over time. And I think the layout blinds, and because even when we're guiding an outfit, you try and hide 8-9 layout blinds in a spread, and then geese can pick 8-9 little things out like that compared to one big blind like Tony's. It makes a big difference to fool those birds. And I mean, you're covered up. To me, you're hidden better in that stand-up blind than in all those layouts, because you can't control 8 guys in a layout with their heads and their faces like you can keep them down in a stand-up blind. And you don't stick out like a sore thumb like you do 8-9 little blinds in a spread. And the geese are getting wary to that. That's why. And to me, a stand-up blind is way more successful. You get way more shooting because you're not limited. When you're in a layout blind, you're limited to your angles out front. You got to shoot your lane. So you can't shoot to the side. Like at least we can shoot from behind out of a stand-up blind to the side, to the front. You know what I mean? You can adapt and switch. Like when you move your decoys, you can bring the birds into wherever, but from a stand-up blind, you can shoot them from any kind of an angle. So that's what makes it so much fun. I love stand-up blind hunting.
Yeah, I'm spoiled now too. I love it. I just love it. I think I love it because when you're in a lay down blind, you're in your own little island, and you have one person that calls, you know, take them or whatever. But when you're in that stand up blind, there's so much chirping and visiting and talking going on that the time just flies, and it just makes it epic. Like
I know that. I got to mention this fall, it was epic when you seen me, my Beretta hung up once all season, but I'll never forget when I turned and looked at you and watched your A5 jam, and you see the look on my face. After saying, "Oh, my A5 never jams, it never jams."
I remember that one goose coming over the blind, and Muck stands up, click. B stands up, click, and I tried to shoot, but I was laughing so hard I could. It was just a single, but and then the vulgar swearing afterwards followed. And it was epic.
I don't think that ever happened.
Played the bit.
Well, boys.
Well, before you watch, sorry, yep. Mark. Before you do your sign off here, just a final thank you to all you guys for helping out. Really appreciate. I hope we can all get together again, either this spring or fall. And just for my channel, for whoever's watching, make sure you subscribe to Muck's channel, 100%, and check out our YouTube channel, Facebook, and you know, we just appreciate everybody who does take the time to watch our show, and hopefully they're learning something new or things like that. So, thanks for having me tonight, fellas. It's been a blast again for sure.
I'll just add one more thing here, Muck. Like, I think for anybody watching this podcast, I mean, a lot of us, we've only met like once or twice. And I think this group of guys really goes to show what the hunting community is all about. I mean, anybody in the hunting community, I think, is so willing to help, and the camaraderie is such a big thing. Because, I mean, yeah, I can go out and I can shoot a limited canvas by myself, but I mean, that's not nearly as fun as going out with all you guys. And I think just by watching this, I mean, the fact that we've only met once or twice, I think it goes to show like how close knit we as a group are, and just a community as a whole. And I think it plays a big part in it for everyone.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, Mike, you had a podcast a few weeks ago that we listened to where you're talking to your brother-in-law, and then one of your other co-hosts there, and you'd referred to that same thing about how you were kind of skeptical of coming to Saskatchewan, and you know, you and I had talked for the last couple of years online, but we never really met, and of course you didn't know any of these other guys, so you're like, I'm just going blind, and it like the hospitality and the, like you said, Dawson, the camaraderie that hunters have, it was like you're a friend, and you just showed up to shoot like we always do, and that's a testament to the way these guys are. it's funny, Blair, you and I just met last year when we started doing these podcasts, even though we've been friends on Facebook and kind of had the same interests. And these podcasts that I've been doing that you've been kind of co-hosting with me and Darren, and we got to talking about hunting and stuff, and we kind of became friends. And the funny thing is we refer to our group as a slob mob, because it kind of got like what we were talking about, shooting the birds way up in the air and they kind of slob down to the ground, and just the chirping that we were doing, that it evolved from, I think people hear the slob mob and they think it's a negative or a derogatory term or something like that. Whereas we think of it the other way. It's more camaraderie. It's like a group of us that have fun doing what we're doing and stuff like that. So we kind of labeled our whole crew the slob mob, and it's fitting. It couldn't be more fitting for the characters that we all have. And I wish Tony was here, because he's quite the character himself.
Well, I mean, I can speak for my dad as well. Like, him and I don't get out as much as we would like as doing father-son stuff, and we're always busy with business stuff. But I don't know if you could have wiped the smile off his face with a 2x4. Like, he had an absolute blast on that trip. Like, he would love to come again in the fall as well, because he loved meeting all the boys and that camaraderie aspect as well. And my dad doesn't like ever hunt. Like, usually I got to pull him out to come out anywhere with me, like involving hunting. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, that sounds fun. Road trip. How bad can it be, or whatever? And on the way back, man, he's just like, oh man, I hope we're going back again next year. So he had a blast as well.
Jim's an absolute beauty too.
Yeah, he was a good guy for sure. Well, fellas, thank you very much for joining us. This has been fun. Let our hair down, tell some stories, do lots of laughing. Like I said, somehow I always seem to be like, you guys are laughing at me, and I don't know why, but no, I'm just kidding. Anyways, boys, thanks for joining us. Have a check out Pursue the Hunt with Mike. Go to his channel. He also has a podcast, Pursue the Hunt Live. Make sure you subscribe to both those. Check out, if you like this program, and check out our other ones, All Outdoors with Muck Simons. Have a like, share, all that stuff. Anyways, take care, guys. Be safe. Let's get back in the field soon. And yeah, thanks for doing this, guys.
Thanks, Muck.